joining me. I'm Scott, and today I've got this Playtime guitar made in the olden days in Chicago, Illinois. It was made alongside of Harmonies and K's and Regal guitars from the olden times. And these guitars were made with ladder brace on the top, kind of similar to what you see here on the back. Usually 5 braces that are, just going horizontal. And it's become a trend to take those braces out and replace them and convert the guitar's top into an X-brace pattern, which is the type of bracing that you'll find in the Martin and the Gibson, and basically any modern guitar will have the X-brace pattern. So I don't really think that it's necessary to do this. I just had a customer that wanted me to fix a repair that was done by a previous person. They braced it a little too lightly, so I had to take the back off of this guitar and figure out a way to make all new bracing for it. And I'm going to show you my method. I'm not saying this is the perfect method or the right way to do it. This is my first time doing it, so I'm sure I didn't do it, perfectly. And but if my method helps you decide how you're going to do yours, great. So far, the people that I've showed this to said that it was done right. So and that it sounds good, and it has a nice arch. And the reason they have an arch is for the structural integrity. That was another reason this guitar had to be redone, is because it was completely flat. It was almost sunken in areas. So keep that in mind, and I'll show you my whole setup down in the garage. Doing a little test run first. I'm going to take all these off now that I've put them all on once. Take them off. Show you the inside a little one more time, and then we'll glue it and reclamp it. The first thing I did was ordered up me a set of these braces from Stu Mac. I took those long braces. I took those braces and transferred the 28-foot radius onto my cedar stock here. It's 1/4 inch thick, just as a demonstration, but the braces I used were actually spruce. I didn't want a 28-foot radius on the top of the Playtime guitar. I was going to shoot for somewhere in the realm of like the ballpark of a 35-foot radius, maybe 40-foot. So I drew this line on there anyways as a guide, and then when I took it over to the sander, I did not go all the way to the line. I just left it a little shy of the line. Maybe about halfway there, kind of thing. See that? So I wanted the top to have a radius, but I didn't want the radius to get too small, because I didn't want it to push the bridge up and then have to reset the neck. So I'll just demonstrate. Then the next thing I would do is come in and measure how long of a brace I want to do. This one, 4 inches. I'm going to transfer that 4 inches over here. I'll just do one of these little finger braces as a demo. I already had all this equipment sitting here for my nut and saddle cutting. I make a lot of bone nuts and saddles with this same equipment. Got the bandsaw. I like to trim the bone nut blanks to length on the bandsaw. And then I have 2 stationary sanders. One of them is attached to a bench grinder, and the other one is an attachment that goes on a drill press. The bench grinder attachment runs at a full 3,000 RPMs, and I have a momentary foot switch on it. I usually just sand with it on idle. Watch how fast this baby goes. I don't know if you'll be able to tell how fast it goes, but I hooked my vacuum cleaner up to it. And then I used this motion to get that 35-foot, 40-foot radius on the bottom side of each brace. I didn't do that with the finger braces, just with the X brace and the tone bars. Eventually work my way closer to that pencil line that I drew. I keep hitting the foot switch and then letting it idle. I don't like to let it run at a full 3,000 RPMs. This disc sander is attached to the drill press and it only runs at 300 RPMs. So this is how I put the taper on each brace. Each brace is a little fatter on the bottom and it tapers to a little smaller at the top of each brace. And that 6-inch wheel gives me a nice little, almost perfect for making braces. Next thing I did was I went out and got these dowels, put these little tips on them, and I wrapped the special tape around them. Those are going to be my go bars. Next, I got this foam material, cut out a little space for the neck. Put it like that. You get the guitar over here, like that. And I would take the brace and I would get a little glue on there like that, and I'd get it ready to go. That, whatever. Come in with the bar. The reason I put that strapping tape around each dowel is just in case it snaps, it won't go hitting me in the eye. I did have one of them snap. It was milled funny and it had almost a cross grain line in the middle of it. But these little 3/8 feet, and those little black tips, I got those on Amazon. I got the 3/8 birch dowels over at Lowe's Home Improvement. And I got the foam over at Walmart. It's upholstery foam. That's for like upholstering a chair or something, a little cushion. That's all that is. Cut a little hole for the neck. And I kept my hot hide glue pot right there plugged in where that paintbrush is. I'll show you that in a second. We'll zoom up and show you the low ceiling here. So I just kind of lucked out and built a workbench that was really close to the ceiling, within 4 feet. It's about 38 inches from the ceiling, which worked out great because they sell those dowel pieces in, I don't know, 4-foot lengths. Maybe it's more like 42 inches to the ceiling. Here's a view of the whole bench. There's the bandsaw. There's the drill press attachment. And there is the belt sander. And here's my hot hide glue setup here. You just you fill the reservoir with water, put in your glue, and keep it in the fridge when you're not using it. Put that in, plug her in, turn it on with the switch, and she's warming up. And that's what I use when I was doing the X brace. I'd put a few braces in, wait about 3 or 4 hours, come back and do another couple braces and mill them up as I went. It was actually kind of fun. I enjoyed it. I wasn't enjoying it as much until I decided on the hot high glue, and then I started really enjoying it because I do like hot high glue. But for this old back, we're going to use fish glue because it has a longer open time and it's going to take me a while to get all these clamps back on here. Yes, indeed. Notice I don't have any bridge pinholes yet. That was the other thing. The original line of holes was way up here, and they're in the wrong place. I got to move them back about a good 1/4 of an inch so that the guitar will intonate. So they're going to be back here. And that's why I left all this extra length. I wasn't quite sure where they were going to fall, but I drilled 2 pilot holes, and they're right here and here. So, and I wasn't quite sure what they use over here. If I did this again, I'd probably do it in 2 different pieces so it looked cleaner because it's all wadded up right here. But I just used muslin and hot high glue. Put that little thing I notice on a lot of guitars. For the big glue up, I'm using fish glue. That's right out of the bottle. It's the red bottle. I get it from Stuart McDonald. It has a pretty long open time. So it'll give me a chance to get all them clamps back on the way I had them earlier. There's a serial number down there on the top. I didn't want to hide that up, but... Well, there it is, all clamped up and glued back together. And I gotta say, after having this guitar here for 6 months, maybe 5 months, I don't know, what a relief it is to be this far along, finally. Most of the time was taken trying to plan out how in the heck I was going to glue the X-brace and the finger braces and the tone bars in place. Once I got that all set up and everything glued together, everything's been coming along real quick. Like, I glued up the X-braces on the top and stuff like, well, maybe 10 days ago. Now I've got the back on, and I think it's going to come along pretty quick from here. Alright, now that the top is, or the back is back on there, I got to glue the bridge. I'm going to widen the pilot holes with my 3/16 bit, and then use my tapered reamer to get those the appropriate shape so that they can receive the Teflon bridge pins. Teflon bridge pins are cool because the glue will not stick to them. And I always use them because once you put the glue on there and you clamp it down, it has a tendency to slide around a little bit. That'll screw your intonation up big time. Well, anyways, once it's held in place like this, I can trace around the outside with an X-Acto blade. So I want a very shallow line around the entire bridge so I know where to remove the old lacquer. I want a good wood-on-wood glue joint. This guitar originally was just screwed on with machine bolts and nuts on the inside. Maybe there was a little glue, I can't remember. Not much, because they never even removed the finish on the there at the factory. They just plopped it on there. This is paint and epoxy remover. It's a chemical stripper. There's a very thin coat of shellac or lacquer or whatever this is on this top, and it's only going to take a couple minutes to remove it all. I did fill the old bridge pin holes with the TJ Thompson method, which I've also shown in other videos, quite a few now. It's basically you take maple fibers and CA glue, the thin stuff. Although I have heard some people using the gel super glue for that. I tried it once and I wasn't too sure. I kind of like how the thin kind of finds every little nook and cranny. Depends on what type of repair you're going to do, I guess. This one was, well, just fill every little gap. Sometimes you just want to repair the bridge plate, and that's probably why I think TJ likes to use the thin. And I like to use the thin. The thin is good. While I'm scraping the old lacquer off the top here, I wanted to tell you about a few other resources that I used while deciding exactly how to cut my braces and mill them up. There's an article online by Jonathan Sevy. His website is jsevy.com. That's JS as in Sam, EVY.com. jsevy. And there's a whole page on top bracing. He describes the X brace in detail. There's also a lot of illustrations, and it gave me a really good idea of what I wanted to do, how I wanted to tackle this thing. It gives precise measurements, and there's a lot of factors to decide about when you're doing this thing for the first time. There's also the lap joint that you have to cut into the two X braces so they fit together. There's another YouTube channel that I watch sometimes called DIY Guitar Making. His name is Eric Schaefer, and he had a nice video on cutting that X brace. I thought that was pretty nice. He didn't show any of the milling stuff like I showed earlier, but he did show how you fit it together and how you cut that lap joint. So between the JSevy and the DIY Guitar Making, I really didn't have much other help. I never went to guitar making school. But that's pretty much my method here. Now I'm getting the clamps in place. These MDF pieces that I use on the wings of the bridge actually have a radius sanded into them so that the blocks are only touching on the outer edge. I also used my radius disc sander for that, the one that's attached to the drill press when I made those little ones. The ones right there. That's been very useful. I get them hand tight and then I give them a couple cranks with my soft touch pliers. My grip strength isn't the greatest. I can definitely get a couple turns out of it with these soft grip pliers. Those laid around here for years before I found a good use for them. Yeah, so the workstation worked really great while scooping up this glue squeeze out. Just swivel that thing around. I mean, I don't have to walk around, and it also works really good when you're doing fret work because you can get your whole body right up next to the fretboard. You don't have to lean over a bench. Now I'm using the Dremel to put a little notch in the bottom of the nut. I made a brand new bone nut for the guy. Richard is his name. Hello, Richard, if you're watching. I know you're going to love this video. The way they cut the truss rod into the neck when they installed that new fretboard, they didn't leave a lot of room for the tool to get in there, so he had a little notch cut in the nut he put on there, so I'm going to put one too. I'm also shaping the saddle. And I'm putting those little finishing touches on the sloped little wings there. This is a through saddle, notice. Oh, now I'm holding the guitar kind of upside down in my Total Vise number 7 so I can cut these little ramps, string ramps into the bridge. The saddle's going to be pretty low, so it needs a little bit of help with the break angle on each string. This bit that I'm using, I don't know what it is, but Doug Proper sent it to me, and I love it. I think it's some kind of dental bit of some kind. It doesn't use the standard 1/8" collet either. I have to change out the collet on the Dremel to use this little bit. But I need to find me some more of these because these are, man, these are nice. I've used these twice to do this same job over the last 2 weeks. Playtime guitar. We got the Country Girl decal. Very cool. So the 2 outer bridge pin holes were already drilled, but these ones in the middle were not. So that's why I'm drilling those. There's a block of wood on the inside of the guitar, held in place with a scissor jack. You'll see that come out in a second. I don't like holding my arm inside the hound hole of the guitar while I'm using the drill. Even if I'm holding like a big old block of wood in my hand, something about it just is awkward and makes me nervous, and I lose sleep at night thinking about stuff like that. I just want to make sure that I do my job safely, so I'd rather take a moment to put a block of wood in there and use the scissor jack to open it up, press up against that bridge plate, make sure the bridge plate doesn't get damaged as the drill bit comes through the soundboard and the bridge plate. A sacrificial piece of wood. And there it is. Black Sabbath has a song called Country Girl. Well, Ronnie James Dio sung it. Country Girl. Scissor jack. Pinhole reamer. We gotta ream those holes. We gotta fit those pins. We got the Playtime guitar. It's getting ready for Richard. We gotta chamfer those holes. The pins will fit lovely. Suction. Danish oil. I'm going to mark my outside string centers. About 1/8 of an inch in from the edges of the fretboard. I'm going to mark out the rest of the strings with my string spacing guide. I'm going to start each notch with a X-Acto saw. And I'll start widening each string slot with nut files. This is a diamond file, 10/1000ths of an inch, and I'll work my way up to widening the holes or the slots so they accommodate each string gauge. And then I'll give the frets a light dressing. I had to do a lot of work on the fret ends. The previous tech didn't have the tools to do the job correctly, and he left a lot of sprouted, weird, funky stuff going on with the fretboard, especially around the neck to body joint. I'll work my way through all the sandpaper grits. I think 8 different grits, 320 through 2000. A little steel wool, and we'll be ready to play. Well, I just strung it up. We're going to give it a listen here. Hasn't been broken in yet or anything. This is fresh. So I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you later.